What's going on, y'all? And welcome to another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass, Chris, and Shaw. What's going on, fellas?
Good job.
What's good? What's good?
What's good? What's good? And a happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there.
For sure.
As it is Thanksgiving week, which means that for the NFL's sake, we get 3 games on NFL Thursday, Thanksgiving Thursday, a game on Black Friday. We obviously have college football, and then back to regular scheduled programming with NFL Sunday and Monday Night Football. But, a lot of stuff has happened over the past couple weeks. We talked a little bit about some of the dysfunction. And I feel like every week, we say this every week, we're talking about dysfunction from some organizations. We talked about the Giants last week, but, shortly after we talked about the Giants, we find out Daniel Jones has been released. No longer the quarterback of the Giants after, 6-7 years. How'd you guys feel about that when you heard that?
I was shocked. I ain't gonna lie. I didn't think that would happen. We all saw the benching happening pretty much at some point this season, but to flat out release him, and then for Dayball to come out and say pretty much he didn't think it would get this far when he made the decision to bench him on that Monday. But it is New York. You have that the media does rule a lot of New York. We know that. And just the negativity and the spotlight around him being scout team safety, that picked up way too much steam. Shit like that. They had to make a decision. Their hands were tied pretty much at that point. But I was shocked that they actually did it, honestly.
That's funny because a lot of journeymen or backup quarterbacks came out and said, if you're not the first and second team, you're gonna do that as a scout team. But it's just like you said, they just blew it up like they'll use a starter, now you playing scout team safety. But man, it's a tough situation, especially with the whole aspect of us being able to see, in depth into their organization with Hard Knocks. I understand, you got rid of Saquon. Obviously, we all know that even if Saquon was there, his offensive line isn't that good as Philadelphia, so he probably wouldn't be doing what he's doing now. But to double down and say, we trying to build around Daniel Jones, and in that same season, you're releasing him, it's like that's an indictment on who. That's where
we all know
it's
who.
That's where GMs get fired, because you're giving out your plan of your course of action of how to advance your organization, and the season's not even over and your whole plan is in the trash. Where you go now? So it's tough. I hate it for Daniel Jones because I never thought he was a good quarterback, but we can all agree he definitely lacked weapons for the most part. He lacked a lot of talent. He lacked offensive line talent. Tough situation for him.
Yeah, it is tough, and it was funny because he kind of gave like a speech that he was going to be released, and nobody was really paying attention to it, and all of a sudden he gets released, and it's like that makes so much more sense now. But it's too many organizations year after year just showing dysfunction, and it's like how does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening? Because it's not like it seems to happen to both New York teams. Obviously, both New York teams are going through turmoil. The Colts, obviously, the Panthers over the past few seasons, and it seems like they're on the uptick. Washington, obviously, prior to this year, and new ownership and stuff like that. But it's just like why is the operation so bad? Routinely, no matter who's there. And it took even them winning a Super Bowl with Eli Manning was improbable. Like, just given how the first Super Bowl, how the season went for them, being a wild card team and getting to the final. Obviously beating the Patriots, who were an undefeated team at that point. Then, a few years later, they were a little bit of a better team, but still needed like a Hail Mary to beat the Packers and different stuff to shake their way to win a Super Bowl. So it's like between those times, they weren't making the playoffs either. They were bottom feeders for the most part. So it's like, why does this keep happening? But I think it's also an indictment on Brian Daboll. I mean, obviously, we've heard some of the comments now, given a few days later, from Malik Neighbors. He kind of went in. We heard some of the leaks from the players post Daniel Jones getting benched in some of the stuff, or anonymous leaks at least. So it's not a good look for him, who is supposed to come in there and be the QB whisperer, even though it might not technically be the guy that he necessarily wanted. And then, I mean, all offseason, they've been hinting, they hinted that they wanted Drake May, that they wanted to look at Jaden Daniels. So it's like, you didn't show the quarterback any respect. You expect him to go after, tearing his knee to be excellent. And it's a little bit of a tough situation. But, I don't know if you guys saw today, but Nick Wright from FS1 reported that he has narrowed down his teams to 4 teams: Baltimore, San Fran, the Minnesota Vikings, and I cannot remember the 4th team to save my life. But those 3 in particular are the most important, because he reported that those were his agency, it seems like, wants him to kind of lean more to Baltimore. He's leaning more to San Fran and Minnesota, in part because they think Brock Purdy might be, hurt moving forward in the season. So out of those teams, or if there's any other teams that you guys think that he should go to, where do you guys think he should land?
I mean, for sure, I believe, probably San Fran more than anything. I mean, Sam Darnold's playing very well, and at this point, I don't think you need to make a quarterback change for him. And you already drafted, a quarterback this year. So, I mean, this past draft. So you probably don't really need to, bring in Daniel Jones. I mean, him playing behind Lamar, he's never going to see the field. So I guess you can learn from him, but I just don't feel like they can run the same type of system in general. And with San Fran, after the poorest quarterback play they just had, and not knowing about Brock Purdy, it could be, I wouldn't say a seamless fit, but it seems to be like a lot of different quarterbacks can come in that system, and if they're okay, they usually play decent within the system, and that would be his best bet to, at least showcase what he got. But I just feel like at this point, there isn't a team out there that I feel like is just desperate or looking for a quarterback of the future at this very moment. So that's kind of my thought on
it. For me, I think, I see why he's leaning San Fran and Minnesota. I would probably say Minnesota out of those 3 teams. Of course, we saw, Kevin O'Connell came out and great support, of Daniel Jones, saying he's always been a fan of his, and we've seen Sam Darnold take some shots this season. We've seen him miss some plays, be questionable a lot throughout the week for their games. He got injured in this game on Sunday. He was limping after taking a hit. So you never really know, because if Sam Darnold goes down, you're on your 3rd quarterback, and then where you go from there. If you're Minnesota, who are what are they now, 8-2, 9-2? It's like they they're going to make the playoffs. So I would say Minnesota. Outside of those 3 teams, I would maybe look at Buffalo to bring him in as a backup behind Josh. Maybe he, I don't know. I don't know how much that will help, but they're not similar quarterbacks, but kind of. You know what I mean? Like, they're, based on Daniel Jones, his ability to take off, just being a bigger guy. I think Buffalo could be a fit where he can go in, learn a different offense, see how Josh kind of plays things at his high level. But those are the 2 teams I would say. What about you?
I don't know if I would go to Buffalo, just because that was like the whole idea with Brian Daboll. And at this point, you're at your career value lowest following that with Brian Daboll. So, I mean, I don't know if I would, sign up to go try to do the same thing, or maybe replicate the same thing. But, I mean, you can't go wrong with Buffalo, given that it is Buffalo, and you can still win a championship and stuff like that, possibly. But I honestly probably would go to Baltimore, because, I do understand San Fran, and I do understand Minnesota, especially because, Sam Darnold has been nicked in the past, and then obviously, like you mentioned, he was limping a little bit. I want to say he even left for a play or two in this past game against the Bears. But Baltimore, he's going to be a backup. He's going to be a backup. It gives you an opportunity to kind of sit down. Obviously he had that opportunity to sit down last year with the ACL, but it's a little bit different given how the season went. You can kind of fully return, maybe even rehabilitate yourself in a completely new offense. And if you do come in and have an opportunity, Lamar gets hurt or something, maybe you can play savior then. But in my opinion, going to San Fran, and let's say that you do go to San Fran, you do start for Brock Purdy, and things don't go well, then now you're really fucked in terms of your career. So it's like, just sit down for a second, take it all in, take the shots. It's been a long 6 years. So get an opportunity to sit and be in a good organization for a little bit, and maybe things will change. Maybe his future will look a little different. But that's all. And then people are going to definitely be like, oh, if he can't work with Kyle Shanahan, if he can't work with Kevin O'Connell, then what is he? So just giving him that opportunity. But aside from that, getting into and also do want to mention that supposedly he was given the opportunity to come in and start right away for the Vegas Raiders, and he said no. So
that would have been bad too, because if you go in and stink it up there, it's like.
But that also kind of tells you about how somebody would feel about the organization as well, as where it stands. Given some of the conversation and rumors about Shedeur Sanders and his possible, with his draft eligibility coming up, and his link to the Raiders. So we'll see how that goes coming in the future. But getting into the week, what was some of the biggest takeaways that you guys have from the week?
For me, I'm gonna be a homer, man.
Yeah,
the Philadelphia Eagles, man. What a performance! I mean, my biggest takeaway is that it's just a big turnaround for our defense in general. I mean, to be able to hold, the Rams basically to 14 points. They scored that last touchdown, but we still won by 17 points. But to be able to hold a team like that everybody, have, high regards for Matthew Stafford and their weapons, to be able to hold on 14 points. And then, obviously, the real story of the game is clearly Saquon Barkley. I mean, I was hoping for a good, turnout for him for the season, but I can't tell you, nobody expected that shit from him. Like, the way he's been playing this season, just in general, and then to come in and have over 300 yards by himself in total offense is crazy. But, yeah, that was an amazing performance by my team.
Yeah. It was good to see. It was good to see Saquon kind of, look, he's on pace to get 2,000 yards on the ground this season. It's honestly wild, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we always said like, oh, if you give him an O-line, you always say that for good running backs, right? You give him an O-line, give him a good O-line, give him a good system. But he's actually proving that shit like week after week, and to finish this game 255 yards, whatever it was on the ground, man,
ridiculous,
insane.
2 long runs too. I mean, it was
taking off, like. But for me, I would say my biggest takeaways are two teams, two kind of disappointments in a way. And I'm going to go with Pittsburgh and Washington. More so because of the rest of their schedule going forward. Washington now sits at 7-5. And they do have Tennessee, which just picked up a good dub, so it's not an easy out at all. Then you got New Orleans, Philly, Atlanta, Dallas again. You might fuck around and find yourself out of the playoffs, and it was looking pretty good 3 weeks ago, as far as your chances going there. But right now it's looking a little bleak. And then for Pittsburgh to lose that one on Thursday night against Cleveland, now I know, we had the big snow game, which was cool to see aesthetically. But that was a huge loss for them. Like, it was, and honestly, a disappointing loss. And then you got Cincinnati, Cleveland again, Philly, Baltimore, Kansas City. It can get a little bleak there, as well. And then close with Cincy. So you got the division game coming up. you 8-3 right now, but it's very possible you go from leading your division, which Baltimore, just is still creeping behind them, to finding yourself in the 6th, 7th seed, or even out of the playoffs. You never really know how this shit can unfold over the next few weeks. So those are the two teams that are like really had some bad losses this weekend, in my opinion.
I honestly think Arizona had probably the worst loss out of all of them. I mean, Washington, that was just a dumbass game. The entirety of it, the way that it ended, the way that the Cowboys let them score to come back, and missing the extra point. Crazy game, but just a truly dumbass game. But the Cardinals just not having any type of real offensive punch or production. Given an opportunity to kind of take a stronghold on the division where, San Fran is clearly reeling, and, you could have really kind of put them in a position where they could have shut Brock Purdy down for the season. The Rams obviously took an L as well. You could have really separated yourself not offensively, in the division, and kind of established yourself as a team. And now you're just right back in the middle of the pack. So that's kind of a disappointment there. But as you mentioned, Tennessee picking up a big win. Especially given how you got a pick 6 out of Will Levis. He still took like 8, 9 sacks. What was it? Maybe even 10 sacks. I think he had 8 in the first half. I could be wrong on that, but it was more than he should have been giving up anyway. CJ clearly, even with Nico Collins coming back, not playing well at all. And then finally with the Panthers sticking in that same draft class, obviously going toe to toe with Kansas City. I thought it was pretty cool to see. I don't know about you guys, but when Bryce Young got that ball at the end of the game, I was like, he's about to lead this drive and get the 2-point conversion, and it was good to see him do so, even though they lost. So, I mean, there was a lot of good games. There was a lot of crazy finishes for that early morning slate.
No, I agree with
definitely for me at 10 o'clock in the morning.
It is different just waking up being able to see football for sure on this side of the country.
Facts. That West Coast time is different. But in terms of to stick with Washington, obviously we got to talk about the Bears with Caleb Williams, and then Bo Nix. Obviously, he's been playing well as well. Do you guys think people were premature in terms of talking about Jaden Daniels and his quote unquote greatness, MVP conversation? And do you think that he should be the front runner right now for Rookie of the Year?
I would say yes, as far as prematurely. I just feel like, you get enamored with certain play styles, and he benefited from, most people not knowing, and maybe he is still a little injured. That's possibility. But I mean, I feel like when you start saying who's the Rookie of the Year in week 4, you don't care. You already giving somebody the title before the season even end. This is a 17-game season. This shit can turn on his head every other game for you to just automatically put him as just the over. Because I mean, most people were saying that because Caleb, he started off pretty rough. Bo Nix, he did start off rough, but a lot of people don't watch Denver games. He's not on TV. He's on the West Coast. People don't really see him like that. So they just get enamored with just certain play styles. But right now, if he have another stinker, I can definitely see Bo Nix taking over as far as Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year anyway. But I guess for now, he's still probably the front runner, but not by much.
Yeah, I think it was premature in a way. I mean, he was playing really well, whether that's from the system that he was in, that he's been playing in with Cliff Kingsbury or what. He was playing well, but honestly, and you mentioned it kind of like in passing last week, Shah, but you mentioned he didn't have the best game this past Sunday, but Brock Bowers and what he's doing in Vegas, like it might be time to look at different position at a different position for this rookie of the year. Now going into the season, I want to say, I think both of y'all pick receivers. I can't remember exactly. But
yeah, I did. I picked Marvin Harrison.
Right. So we were definitely expecting, bigger seasons out of Marvin Harrison, out of Malik Neighbors, which I know he's dealt with injury. The Cardinals should be better with him, but with Marvin Harrison. But I think it's time to look at other positions. Look at Brock Bowers, then really look at what he's doing at the tight end position. And he is literally like a top 5 tight end in the entire league. Like, this is not just like, just amongst the rookies or amongst, like, he's literally maybe in top 3 this season as far as tight end. So you can't really you can't overlook this stuff just because he's a rookie and just because he plays a different position from quarterback.
I mean, he's been the best tight end this season.
But again, that goes back to my point. He's buried in fucking Vegas. And nobody care about them.
He should be an all pro. No, I mean,
I want to say he might be top 10 in receiving yards just in general in the season.
I think he is, because he was on pace to match Puka's line from last year as far as from rookies. And I'm like, this is a tight end we're talking about here, y'all. Like, yeah, I know you lean quarterbacks a lot, and even receivers, but let's take a look at this guy.
And I do think it is. I mean, Brock Bowers would probably be my rookie of the year right now, and then I probably would have Bo Nix too. With Jaden Daniels kind of slowly falling from 3, because I thought it was, I thought he had a really good hot start the first, 3 games. I think it was the third game that he had the Bengals game that they played. And that was kind of in my opinion, I felt that was kind of the peak of the season for him. Obviously that doesn't mean he didn't have other excellent games as well, but, in terms of, they were near perfect on offense. In terms of perfection, I thought obviously that was kind of the peak of it, and it's slowly kind of gotten worse and worse as the season's gone on. He was saved a little bit by that bomb. What was an 80-yard touchdown to Terry McLaurin, that brought him over, damn near 300 yards. But to play that Dallas defense that has been terrible all season, obviously they are, they could say what they want, that they're fighting, and Micah Parsons is saying that they're not dead, they're not tanking. But I mean, when your quarterback is out, you could say what you want. I mean, it is what it is. Like, you could try to do what you can. Maybe you do luck into a season like the Vikings, or you do luck into a season like the Colts had last year. But most of the time your backup quarterback comes in, it's over. And,
especially with a team that was playing bad when they started.
Yeah, exactly. True. So it's, it's not looking too good. And honestly, there was a lot of conversation that came out at the beginning of the season. Obviously, we know about the hot take artists and stuff like that. But, I was one that did feel like he was probably going to be the worst quarterback out of all of them. So I was a little surprised to how the season started off. So I'm interested to see how the rest. I think it still might be Bo Nix, honestly, even though he's playing well, and I think statistically he'll always be solid. But
I think Bo Nix is as good as he's going to be right now. I think that's
I could see.
And
that.
I think this. I mean, it's just what it is. He'll be a solid quarterback. You can't give him too much, and he will. And if he starts doing too much, he will look bad. So,
obviously things could be different for him if they had a little bit, obviously Courtland Sutton's a good receiver. And they've got some young guys over there that they're trying to develop, but maybe with another guy over there, or a guy, he might look a little different as well. So, but yeah, I don't, nobody mentioned Caleb, which is funny. So I guess,
look, he
I guess everybody's kind of off.
Caleb did do. I talked about it last week, like using his legs more. You saw it happen last week, and you saw it happen this week again. Like he was moving a lot more. And when you start running like he's running now, it just shows a little bit more confidence in his abilities. Shows a little bit more fight just overall. Like, I want to get this first down. I want to get this play. He had a nice play where he jumped over a lineman to get a first down. I think I don't know if that was third or fourth down, but it was fourth. Yeah, and it was like plays like that is like, yes, like that's the thing that keeps you moving, gets you going. So you saw him use his legs more and more this week, more than last week even. So, but as
The
far
funny thing about it is, like, the very next play, he almost threw a
yeah.
pick.
That's what I'm gonna say. But as far as like passing, seeing the field, he still is still not where he needs to be. And I know, like, and Keenan Allen, he caught some good balls over the middle, over on the sidelines as well. But he moving a little slow out there. I don't know. It just looks off. It just looks off. And I know they're.
I mean, he is like 34.
He is old. I got to give him that. They try to get Rome involved at the end of that game, and they're trying to get more gadgety with DJ Moore, line him up in the backfield, getting the ball out quick. Having them D-boy it up, trying to break some tackles, use his size and stuff. So they're trying to be creative in Chicago. It's just not amounting to much. But I don't think Caleb is like. I don't think he's bad. I just think we'll see. It's the jury's still out on him, big time.
Yeah. And we'll see. I mean, it's still a lot of
a lot to
still
change.
like still a quarter of football left.
Yeah.
So I mean, Drake May, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, especially if the Cardinals can start. I mean, they're in position to still obviously win their division. So if they can, Marvin Harrison can be a big part of that too. So we'll see how that goes. But get into the hot seat watch. Last week, not another great week for some hot seat folks. Dayball, obviously, I had him. I mean, I don't know if anybody could have had a worse week after making the decision. Your starting quarterback gets released. Your star receiver comes out and basically says you're buns. After a week of people saying, hey, Brian Dayball's job is safe. It appears to be safe, blah, blah, blah. It ain't looking great. So, I'm interested to hear who you guys got on the hot seat watch this week and why. So let's go ahead and get it cracking, Chris, and take it away.
I got two things about the hot seat watch, but the first one we can stay on topic of what we've been talking about this whole time. The Washington Commanders. I mean, your season it kind of took a turn for the worse, and it could have been started after the you was able to get the Hail Mary off, because that could have been a loss. But then you lose to the Steelers on kind of like a last second type of thing. Then you lose to your divisional opponent, which is the Eagles. And then you turn around and lose to another divisional opponent, which is the Cowboys. I mean, that loss couldn't have been no worse than what it was. I mean, people talk about it all the time. Well, they talk about it before about Cliff Kingsbury offense always hits a proverbial wall before the end of the season. It just, you had 9 points into the fourth quarter against a Dallas defense that has been terrible the entire season, straight up terrible. And like Shai said earlier, when the fourth quarter started, just some Looney Tunes shit started happening. I just don't understand what the fuck that was. But I mean, you're really falling out of place.
Fourth quarter, bro.
Just like, what are you doing? Like,
what are you doing? But I mean, you were a top of your division, fighting for the division, and now you're fighting for a playoff spot at this point. You done fell behind, and theoretically, you do have a couple of winnable games, but they're not always that winnable. Like Cass said, you play Tennessee next. They just beat the Houston Texans. They got a good defense. They can actually do some things if Will Levis will just act right. But this is a tough schedule coming up for them. So I got them / Cliff Kingsbury on the hot seat. But my next hot seat is an interesting one. Man, I'm putting all the motherfucking kickers on the hot seat. What the fuck is going on, man? I mean, missed extra points. And then when we talk about kickers that are like good, like that we consider good, like Justin Tucker has been missing a lot this year. My own kicker, Jake Elliott, has been missing a lot. Koo missing a lot. It's been crazy, and it's been leading up to like the last second of the game. Like, all right, this to tie it up, miss. This to win the game, miss.
Do you want to say his first name, Chris?
Say how Shannon said.
Right. But yeah, I got all kickers on the hot seat.
No, the kicking this year has been egregious. You got to say it. And then on top of them missing, it's been a lot of kicker injuries this year. Have y'all noticed this year? A lot of kickers going on IR this season. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, this whole season is just really weird. And they just put a kick on the IR today for Washington. It's like, what is going on?
I think that happens more than people realize. Like kickers be getting hurt a lot. Like
Maybe,
I don't know
yeah,
why.
maybe.
I really don't know why, but they get. I mean, kickers are recycled a lot. Like and repop up places. I mean, and it is weird how they go. It's weird how like it's like they go through waves of confidence where they're on fire and they join a new team and they hit the first 30. Then they miss one and all of a sudden it's like, God
Shit
damn,
starts
this nigga
snowballing.
here,
Yeah,
bro. Yeah, bro,
like Fairburn,
geez,
like
bro.
that one he missed from Houston, Kiami or whatever his name is. Like, dude, like you missed a 28-yarder, bro. Like
And he knew it. Nigga looked like somebody shot him.
that shit is nuts. I don't know what like.
But,
I need to
who
get
you
right.
got,
Need to
Cass?
get right. For me, I kind of hinted at last week. They avoided it because of the bye week, or he avoided it, I should say. But I'm gonna do it. I gotta do it. Kirk Cousins. The noise is starting to get a little loud. And we talked about it this season. Like, when is that going to come? We know it was coming regardless. Well, with the draft pick of Michael Penix Jr. But the last two games for Kirk Cousins, no offensive passing touchdowns. He has looked like a shell of himself. Everybody talks about his mobility. He's never been mobile. It is what it is. But we talked about it a couple of weeks ago as well, as far as like the fumble. He leads the league in fumbles at his position with like 11. It's like you're averaging a fumble a game, from a lost fumble a game. It's honestly ridiculous from a quarterback position, from a veteran quarterback at that. He's not feeling the pressure well. Is very embarrassing. You got a good defense. I know we just saw what happened to the Chargers, last night against the Ravens, but the Ravens are just a different kind of, we know this is a different monster. The Chargers still have a good defense. But you have the Chargers at home. Kirk, these next two games against the Chargers and Vikings, you have to show up. You have to get this offense back on track because the defense is not doing it for you, Chris. It's not. So you gotta win. You gotta put up points. And if not, if you drop these next two games, then you start looking, okay, Kirk's not going to be our future. Let's move on to Michael Penix. He has a no trade clause, but the noise might be so loud in Atlanta, he might want to leave. You know what I mean? And then, okay, he gets to choose where he wants to go. And with only a year left, pretty much a year left, like a year and a quarter or whatever it is, left of guaranteed money, why wouldn't a team that's looking to make a jump trade for him, get some assets for him, and wait, and then what is perceived to be a weaker quarterback draft class, and wait until the next year and bring in a vet like Kirk for the 2025 season? It's all lining up a little bit too much for me. Like I can see it very clearly, like how it can happen where Kirk gets traded to a different team in the offseason. But I know the Falcons never really wanted to do that. It doesn't seem like it, but his play has to reflect. You gotta show us why we should bring you back on this team next year. And these last couple of games ain't it at all. You play good defense this season, you fold. So you got two defenses coming up. Let's see what you do. You're on a hot seat, Kirk.
Man, it's a tough situation too because, like you just said, if you drop the next two games, you could very well be not first place in your division.
Yeah.
After basically winning your division, you 4-1 in the division. The Bucks lost both their receivers for an extended period of time. I know they got Mike Evans back, if I'm not mistaken, but they lost their receivers an extended period of time. That was your chance to like put a gap, put a stop to like, yeah, this our shit.
Yep.
Like, yeah, these some important games for Kirk in the next two games for sure.
Big.
And I know a lot of people were talking about the Bucks because I mean they could be tied, after this weekend. But the Saints have it's interesting to say favorable because you're a 4-win team and you're kind of the favorable on the schedule as well. But the Saints have a decently favorable schedule as well, and they are the one that did beat Atlanta. So
yep.
That
and they had the Bucks as well.
The team that a little bit
at the end of the season,
and that might be the team that might be a little bit more interesting to watch there, especially if things continue to turn around with the new head coach. But in terms of the getting traded, I personally don't think that that's happening. I don't know who's going to give up trade assets. If the Falcons, who thought that they were going to make a jump, don't make the jump, I don't know if another team is going to follow up and try to do the exact same thing. I do think that we could see a retirement. He did a little bit of his media tour. I didn't get to tune in because I was obviously it was like fucking 7 o'clock in the morning. But he did his media tour on the bye week. Typically when we start seeing people do that, it is typically for a reason. So I couldn't really see anybody giving up assets, maybe like a 6th-round pick.
I mean, it might be, yeah.
If that's the case. If you want to give that up, then sure. But, I don't, but, we'll see. I mean, it's still a long season. But I will go and stick at that same position and go to his Achilles brother, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is, he also kind of got an escape last week because of the bye week. But I mean, has a quarterback of that caliber had a rougher end to their career than Aaron Rodgers? Because, Brett Favre, if you want to say him being similar, he went to the Jets and provided a spark, and they were like 8-3, and he ended up getting hurt. He went to the Vikings and provided a spark, got them to the NFC Championship, and then from there things went downhill. Peyton Manning, first season, he started off slow, then ends up getting him to the divisional round. Second season, he's the MVP, gets him to the Super Bowl. Third season, gets him to the playoffs, is a little rough, he gets hurt. Fourth season, it's a mix between him and Brock Osweiler. He's a little bit nicked, but he ends up coming back towards the end of the season, wins the Super Bowl. Tom Brady obviously wins the Super Bowl his first year, gets back to the playoffs, both his second and last year, even though his last year was a little rough. Joe Montana got an opportunity, got to the playoffs with Kansas City, made some noise. It is not, I don't want to say it's not a great look. And I mean, the thing about being the quarterback and what Tom Brady, reportedly, and Peyton Manning brought to those teams was a bit of calm, a bit, presence, leadership. And, because I think people give Aaron Rodgers a lot of shit for how noisy it got in Green Bay. It wasn't noisy in Indianapolis, obviously, because Peyton Manning got hurt, and it kind of made sense. And, in New England, it got noisy. We don't talk about it a lot, but it was just as noisy, if not noisier, than the Packers. But once he left that noise there. There was some noise that crept back in towards the end of the end of his tenure with Tampa Bay, the last 2 years, obviously with his wife and different stuff going on. But that first year, he obviously, when they ended up getting into the bye week, they started off a little rough. Mm-hmm. He was kind of that force, that driving force. And Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if you're going to be there next year. You've obviously now gotten a general manager fired, head coach fired, an offensive coordinator fired, and you've gotten a receiver fired and traded. Yeah. You got a receiver traded over to you. You basically got another receiver demoted in Alan Lazard. It's not. You're supposed to be the stabling force as a 4-time MVP, the second most MVPs in the history of the NFL, a bona fide top 5, top 6 quarterback in the history of the NFL. Even if you aren't MVP caliber, you are supposed to at least be a steadying force. Even Kirk Cousins, to his credit, has been somewhat of a steadying force. Even with all that dumbass swag surf and walking your trap, that's really where he fucked up. I'm not gonna lie.
That's where it got too much.
That as soon as that shit started happening, everything has gone downhill. Yeah. As soon as he started leaning into it. So, Aaron Rodgers, I'm glad you started doing that bullshit. But it seems like ever since you started leaning more into yourself, things have gone downhill. And, we don't know what your future holds. We don't know if you're going to be with New York. I don't know who's going to trade for you, similar to Kirk Cousins, after the season. But, if you do want to make, kind of redeem yourself, you got these next couple of weeks, play spoiler. You never know. Maybe they sneak in somehow if everybody else in the AFC just starts cratering. So, Aaron Rodgers, you're on the hot seat. You need to make some noise. You need to have multiple big games, not one and then 3 bad ones or one okay one. You need multiple big Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't necessarily have to be vintage, but multiple big now Aaron Rodgers games. So you're on the hot seat.
Did he ever pass for
And
300 again? I know that's been a running joke, but every week it's like, damn, he really is going to get that shit. That shit.
I don't know. I truly don't know because that offense is disgusting.
It really is.
It really through and through. And I don't know how it gets better. The system, I mean, the play caller doesn't really matter. The system is already in place, and it was a bad system to begin with. So, I don't know. We'll see. But that nigga's on the hot seat.
Seahawks this week. So I don't know. Yeah, it could get ugly.
But it's gonna get ugly. It's gonna get ugly. But this is the type of dumbass game that Gino will lose to.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
We'll see. We'll see.
In the NFC, that's the NFC West. It seems like nobody wants to win that division. Really, I feel like
it seems like nobody wants to win
until the end of the season.
And this is also another week that could be a good kind of somebody to stand out because, like I mentioned, the Saints, they're playing the Rams. That is a team that's going to be. I mean, that's going to be a better game than a lot of people think. And almost ended up in the picks, but it's kind of tough. Thanksgiving week kind of has like 6 built-in primetime games in a sense. Yeah. But nobody wants to talk about Kansas City and the Raiders. So
or Giants.
Let's go ahead and get into the picks. Or Giants Cowboys. Well, maybe. Hey, you never know.
No.
We saw how ugly the Cowboys game was. It got so. Let's go ahead and give us a rundown of what it looked like last week, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, last week, again, a rough week for me. Chris, you got 4 out of the 6 right. Only ones you got wrong, of course, Pittsburgh. And then you also picked Arizona as well. We all picked Arizona. We all picked Pittsburgh, so we were all wrong there. I had no idea Brock Purdy was going to be inactive for this game. That's the only reason I picked San Francisco. I'll ride with it, though. I won't ask for grace, but that shit fucked me. So that was a bit rough. I only got 2 out of the 6 right, with those being Detroit and Baltimore. Shy, you were at 3 with Green Bay, Baltimore, and Philly. So on the season, I'm at 39, Chris 47. Shy, you were at 39 with me. So
walk them down. Chris, you next, folk, man. It's about to come this week. Things to give thanks for. But starting off the first game of the week, a 12 o'clock game on Thanksgiving Day. Probably when people, black people probably not even pulling up with each other by that point yet. Niggas just waking up. But Chicago at Detroit. Obviously Detroit's been rolling. I don't want to call it a big win, but I guess you could say a big win. It was out of conference, but they kind of took over in Indianapolis, and then Chicago, a tough loss in overtime versus the Vikings. Who you guys got and why?
I'm gonna roll with Detroit. I think they keep it rolling, but I do think it's gonna be a close contest. It is a division opponent. Chicago's defense, it's been good, but lately it's been up and down. So can't really say if they can, slow down Detroit. But I think it's gonna be a good game. But eventually Detroit will probably pull it out and win by 10, 14 points.
I want to say it's gonna be a good game, but I really don't see it. I don't think Chicago's offense will have enough to kind of keep up in this one. I'm gonna go to Detroit. I think they win by a couple of scores. I don't think it looks good. I don't think they just obliterate them like we've seen in the past. I think it might be more of waiting for the offense to make some mistakes, kind of like what happened last week. I think it's just a 2-score game. But I got Detroit.
Yeah, it's tough because they both have kind of been playing. At least last week, their game plan was both very similar. Against the Colts, Detroit ran a lot of screens. I mean, damn near every play was a screen if it wasn't a run. And then they probably ran 3 deep digs the entire game, and the rest of it was just screen, quick pass. And same thing with Chicago against Minnesota. A lot of screens, as Cass mentioned. They hit a big one with DJ Moore, which kind of goes to his strengths because he's really good run after catch. But Chicago, much like what Indianapolis did last week. Indianapolis kind of, Indianapolis got their yards. I mean, they went down and drove down the first drive of the game, got 3 points. Second drive of the game, I want to say they drove down and got 3 points again. So could have been right there. I think they actually dropped a touchdown and could have been up 10-7. They had like 150 yards or something taken back by penalties. So they were playing well aside from the penalties against Detroit. The Bears, I can see them doing the same thing because that was kind of an uncharacteristic game in terms of the penalties for the Colts, maybe not in terms of the sloppiness, but they're one of the least penalized teams, whereas Detroit is a little bit more undisciplined, and I can see the same thing happening offensively. So I'm going to also rock with Detroit in this one, but I do think that it is a close game, and maybe they break away at the end to make it multiple scores. But I do think one thing is interesting. This is around the same time last year that Detroit started to kind of turn and get a little bit worse down the stretch of the season. And it started with the same game against the Bears. They didn't lose this game against the Bears, but it was one of the best games that Justin Fields had last season. And I want to say it ended up being back and forth. Detroit ended up coming back in the end and winning.
They were at home too, weren't they?
Against the Bears. I believe so. Yeah. And they ended up coming back against the Bears later in the season. So that is something to watch because as they blew out, Tennessee the week before, 2 weeks ago, they weren't particularly clean against the Colts. So it would be interesting to see how they do against Chicago in this spot. So
honestly, that game, I was just gonna say, honestly, that Colts game. I mean, that was a game to be had, though. I know it's unfortunate to hear for you about your team, but no, like you said, it was a lot of sloppiness, drop passes, all kinds of stuff that like it kind of opened the eyes to what I kind of figured that, I didn't think Detroit had a good defense. They had an okay defense. I mean, but I never thought that they were these world beater for a defense. I thought their defense could be had. So,
and now they have injuries at every level with with Hutch, Anzalone, and now Carlton Davis. So,
yep.
And some guy, Ali McNeil got nicked. Taylor Decker got nicked on their offensive line. They took a lot of hits last week. So, with the quick turnaround, especially with it being an early game too, I could see where we see an upset. But I mean, it's just hard to trust a team that's already fired their offensive. But getting into the night game, which could possibly be the game of the week, but we've got a lot of game of the week potentials here. Miami at Green Bay Packers. Both teams playing pretty well. Obviously, Miami's had a little bit of a resurgence since Tua's return. Packers obviously got a big win last week, with or without Brock Purdy. I mean, they dominated that game. Who do you guys got and why?
I'm gonna ride with Miami. I said this a couple weeks ago that I felt like, if they would have beat the Rams, they could, possibly have a turning point in the season and maybe make a push for the playoffs. I mean, they've been doing well since then. It just highlights the fact that they actually clearly need Tua because, I mean, when they didn't have him, the offense just, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't real. That's all I'm gonna say. But I mean, Green Bay, I like their team, but it's just their offense. It's very up and down. Like it's never really consistent for me. And I think Miami, they're on a little streak right now, so I think they can win this game. So I'm gonna go with
Miami. We're the same mindset. Of course, I've been vocal about Green Bay, how like they're winning, but and I know they blew the San Francisco 49ers out last week. I know they beat their ass, but it's something that looks off. I got Miami in this one, and also San Fran. We didn't talk about it much, but it seems like it's coming back to bite them, firing their defensive coordinator right after the Super Bowl. Because that defense looks nothing like it. Everybody's like, where did San Francisco's defense go? But nobody's bringing up the fact that Steve Wilkes was fired right after that Super Bowl. And they brought in who they brought in. But anyway, I got Miami in this one on the road. Kind of the same reason you said, Chris. I think Miami just needs it more. It wants it more. Miami loses this game. It gets really, really murky. So I got the hungrier team.
I'm actually going on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's tough to say a team that just put up 38 points is struggling offensively. Even with Jordan Love didn't, do anything too egregious this past week, but they're still, winning in spite of some of the issues that Jordan Love has had, and he was very clean this past week. Um, you know, Miami has been playing really well. Their defense is teetering right there around top 10.
Yeah.
And has been playing really well as well. Chop Robinson has been emerging over the past few weeks. But I just think the Packers, they're just Matt LaFleur is probably my coach of the year thus far.
Hello, coach.
And I think that continues at home, and we still the Tua, having those questions about him and playing in the cold weather, blah blah blah. I still think that we still come away with those questions, even though I don't necessarily have those questions about him.
They're going to keep coming up though.
But
for his
they're
sake,
still
I
going
hope
to keep coming about it, and it would be good to see him win it, especially on Thanksgiving. That would be especially given how his season's gone thus far. Continuing on with the hot streak, it would be good. But I do think that's going to be a really good game between the two of them, though. So.
Yeah, I think Jalen Ramsey gets him one too. A big one.
Might. But getting into the next game, he will. He will. Arizona at Minnesota. Arizona, as I mentioned, had an opportunity to take a kind of a stranglehold of the division, but fucked it up. Now they're in the middle of the pack. Minnesota continues to win despite people thinking that they were going to take some type of dip. Even as their schedule has gotten quote unquote tougher over the past few weeks, even as it started off very tough. Who do you guys got and why?
Man, I did not like what I seen for Arizona last week. Not at all. They had the opportunity of a lifetime, like you said earlier, Sean. With the other two divisional opponents losing, you had a chance to beat a divisional opponent. Just go ahead and try to take a stranglehold of the division. But I'm gonna rock with the Vikings, man. They're just consistently just making good plays and winning the game. I mean, to be where they are in the season is short of remarkable. I mean, if you were to go back in time and predict, if as far as Sam Darnold being a starter, how well they would have been played, most of us wouldn't think they would play well at all. But they've been pretty good. They've been pretty solid. Their defense, they come to play most of the time. So I'm gonna rock with the Vikings.
I want to pick Arizona, but that offense has just been way too inconsistent. And I think against a Minnesota defense, that's going to bring the pressure on Kyler. We'll see how much he can use his legs, but I do think that pressure will get to him in this one. And I got the Vikings at home. I don't even think it'll be that close, to be honest with you. I think they play much better than this Arizona team. So, Vikings at home.
Yeah, and I'm going with the Vikings as well. I'm not going to, last week was a huge disappointment for me in terms of what the Cardinals did. I really thought that they were going to take a kind of a stranglehold, as I've mentioned multiple times on this show. Minnesota just continues to play well. Jordan Addison had a huge game, so that'll only help Justin Jefferson moving forward. TJ Hawkinson has been.
He had a huge game too. He had like 100 yards.
Getting better and better throughout as he's returned. Aaron Jones gotta stop fumbling, but he continues to play well. So I'm rocking with Minnesota. I have no faith in Arizona to kind of bounce back there and win a big game.
And that Kyler Murray pick last week was nasty.
It's like, what were you trying to like? What?
It was bad.
What's the thought process? What's the thought process?
I don't know if it was, they made a great play for it to go to pick six, but it was bad. But getting to another possible potential game of the week here, we've got Philadelphia at Baltimore. Two of the, possibly three of the top four, maybe front runners for MVP right now. With Derrick Henry, obviously Saquon and Lamar Jackson. Two teams that have been playing, two of the best teams, very well could be a potential Super Bowl matchup as well. Who do you guys got and why?
Yeah, man. Game of the week right here for me. Man, ultimate test too, because like you said, I mean, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, they're on a heater right now. As far as totality of the season, and Baltimore is one of them teams, especially with Lamar, more so Lamar, Lamar than Baltimore. But they dominate the NFC all the time. He only lost maybe I think it was 2 or 3 like throughout his whole career. So he's normally a dominant person against the NFC, especially, and then not to mention the fact that they're home. But you already know I'm rocking with the Eagles, man. I got to rock with my squad. I think it's going to be a great game. I actually don't think either running backs are actually going to dominate for sure. I believe both defenses are going to take a considered effort to stop that run game. And it's going to come down to weapons on the outside. I just think we're going to take over for that. So Eagles going to win that.
Big test for your linebackers. Zach Bond has been having a crazy season above his expectations. He definitely gets tested in this one, not only with Derrick Henry, but also with both of their tight ends and likely Andrews. That's going to be a busy day for him and Dean. I'm going to go Baltimore at home on this one. I'm just going to pick the home team in this one. It's a tough pick, a tough game for me to pick, honestly. But if you're teetering, I just got to go Lamar versus the NFC. So I'm gonna go Lamar in this one.
Yeah, this is gonna be a really good one. It is. It's crazy that you get this game and then what we originally thought this next game was gonna be on Sunday Night Football and on the same week, but both teams are, I think, 2-3 in terms of run defense this year, with I think Baltimore being 2 and the Eagles being 3. Both teams obviously have been playing well offensively. Baltimore has been playing better defensively as of the past couple weeks, and the Eagles obviously have been on a heater for the past 6-7 weeks, where they've been, if not the number one defense, very close to it. Brandon Graham, tough loss. Obviously, he is out for the season after, dominating that game against the Rams. And, obviously Slay, I believe he got a concussion in the game, and they had a couple other nicks. I want to say that Josh Sweat may have got nicked up in the game as well. I just think that Lamar, his ability to pass is going to be the difference in the game. I think that, his ability to make plays and pass, obviously, I think will hurt with the Eagles being a little bit nicked on their D line, and not both teams not being necessarily be able to have that 120 yard rushing game. So I'm rocking with the Ravens in this one, and they really need it still more than the Eagles. The Eagles have afforded to kind of, depending on if they want the 1 seed or not, we'll see how the Lions do. But in terms of division, they have afforded themselves a loss or two here. But even then, it's out of conference, so it's not going to hurt them that bad if they do. So, but getting into the Sunday night game, we'll see. Right now, it's San Fran at Buffalo. Buffalo is a 7-point favorite, so you guys can probably take that into consideration in terms of what Brock Purdy's status is. But who you guys got and why?
Man, you got to go ahead and rock with Buffalo. They've been playing at a high level these past few weeks, and after watching that game by San Francisco, if Brock Purdy is not to play, I cannot see that offense getting anything going for real against Buffalo. So I'm rocking with Buffalo all day.
I got Buffalo as well at home. I think San Francisco's season is essentially over, and I think you just chalked that shit up to injuries and just bad timing, just overall. After this game, you have Chicago, okay, and then you have the Rams, Miami, Detroit, and then you close out with Arizona. It's not a good season for San Francisco. I think it's a good chance for them to kind of reset, figure out who they want to keep, who they want to get rid of. Debo is having a terrible season. And of course, you had the injury to Brandon Ayuk. So it's a lot of questions on this offseason for San Francisco, and I think it starts early over the next couple of weeks. So I think they lose this one out on the road.
And just like I mentioned at the beginning of the season, noisy teams coming into the season, it's kind of and it's been tough for damn near every single one of them. I would say out of all of them, the Falcons are probably been the only. Well, maybe the Eagles. I guess I don't know if they were too noisy necessarily this offseason, but the Falcons would probably be, in terms of my definition of noisy, the most successful out of all of them. But San Fran, you said Debo's having a terrible season. Well, the writing's kind of been on the wall for him. I mean, he was kind of hinted to be the one that was going to be traded. Even through the Brandon Ayuk saga, they were still talking about, Debo, we're trading the fuck out of him. So, San Fran is a dead team walking, coming off of a blowout loss.
To trade the fuck out of his crazy.
I mean, they were basically saying that. Then, I mean, even when he was having the contract dispute with them, it was a little bit noisy there. So, going from a blowout loss in Green Bay to probably a blowout loss in Buffalo is tough.
That's very tough.
But I think that Buffalo, coming off of a bye week, is probably going to dominate this game on Sunday night. So I'm rocking with Buffalo, and Josh Allen continues his MVP tour. But getting into the Monday night game, kind of a bit of a snoozer. Possibly. We'll get some good quotables. Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns versus Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. Who you guys got and why? In Denver.
Yeah, that's probably a funny ass game to me.
Man.
I still like the Browns defense in general, and I think they can cause some issues with Bo Nix, but I don't know. That Browns offense, even with Jameis, it just does not look good at all. I mean, Jameis, he trying out there. I don't know what it is. Maybe Kevin Stefanski not a good coach. Shai said that earlier in the year, so maybe he right. He might be right, but it just don't look that good with Jameis. I don't know what it is. It's just he makes plays, but as far as the fluidity of the offense, just doesn't look good. And Bo Nix, he's getting very much comfortable with Sean Payton in the offense. So I'm gonna rock with Denver in this one. In a close game though, like I said, I still think Myles Garrett can obviously wreck the damn game if he wants to. He can clearly do that. So that could be could be the reason why they lose. But I just don't like the Browns offense at this point.
Very fair, especially against this Broncos defense, which week after week have kind of proven they're elite. This game against the Raiders that they had, of course, it was a division game, so you kind of it's always different. But the Raiders did have their chances to win this game, and Minshew kind of sold them. He had a terrible pick when they had all the momentum in the lead. That kind of set Denver, on his trajectory to go close out that game. I'm gonna go Cleveland in this one, mainly because I'm like 7 points behind you, Chris, but also because I think this is a game where you do see Cleveland's defense kind of step up and give Bo Nix some trouble. Myles Garrett, I think the win last week, of course, they have some extra rest as well. The win last week, I think it kind of propels them, getting a little bit more energy going into this last quarter of the season. And I think you kind of see that kind of fruition on this one. Yeah, I think it'll be an ugly game, though, but it is the Browns. So,
yeah, it is the Browns. And, strictly because I could see them winning, but strictly because I also feel like they're another dead team walking, I'm going with Denver. I think they got their shit off this past week when they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Myles Garrett had his little thing to say to TJ Watt or whatever. And I would love to see them win this game, especially because it's a game that the Colts need. But I just it's not you know what? Actually, I'm going to switch it. I'm going to go with the Browns. I'm going to go with the Browns. Fuck it.
Yes, sir.
I like the Browns. I like Jameis to give us a performance on Monday Night Football. The guy that I expect to really give us a performance is Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy has been balling over the past few weeks and really the entire year. I want to say that he's this is his highest yardage per game season of his career quietly. And obviously they traded for him and extended him this past offseason. returning to Denver, where he had his little spat with Sean Payton, and some of the fans may not have been his biggest fans as well. I think that he comes to play, and I'm rocking with the Cleveland Browns to win in a close game. We get a great Jameis quote after.
Hey man, Bo Nix could have damn sure used fucking Jerry Jeudy in the damn offense.
Hey, I mean, that's a different story.
Clearly, Sean Payton don't like him, so
Yeah.
I mean, something like that. I mean, maybe we'll get a Jerry Jeudy quotable. He's saying something back to Steve Smith after they had their little dispute last year.
That too, shit.
And squashed it, and having a big game
crazy.
back in Denver.
That was crazy.
But that gives us a wrap for the picks of the week. Another great week in store for us. Hope everybody enjoys the time with their family, or enjoy some time by yourself if you're not around your folks. But I hope everybody have a great and happy Thanksgiving, and we will catch you guys next week.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.